Once you have NetBeans all installed and set up, it's going to look something like this. Well, it probably won't look exactly like this because I've got a dark theme installed. If you want the dark theme, just go Tools, Plugins, Available Plugins. You can click the check for newest if you like. You can sort by, I thought you used to be able to support, okay there, I can sort by name. And it's not going to show up here because it's already installed, but you have dark look and feel themes, and right above this, typically there's Darkula. This is something I have installed. If I go show details on the installed tab, you can see I have Darkula installed. It's quite a nice theme. And just in case you're curious, I'll briefly leave up all of the other plugins that I have installed here, some of which are pretty nice. Okay, so once you've configured NetBeans with the plugins that you like, it's time to figure out how to actually start up a project in NetBeans. So typically when I'm creating a new project, often I'm working on code that I've actually started outside of NetBeans, and I find that's kind of the most painless way to actually start a project in NetBeans, is maybe somewhat ironically to start the project outside of NetBeans, because if you start it in NetBeans, then NetBeans itself will generate makefiles for you, and they're these giant, extremely general makefiles that are very complicated, and usually I want to do some sort of hacking in my makefiles manually. So what I end up doing is I create a new project folder, and then I just create like a basic makefile in that folder and quickly edit it, just create a super basic build target. So let's have a very simple based build target that just depends on main.cpp. And I have my editor here is not very well configured to edit makefiles, because here I've started my line with 4 spaces. My tab got turned into 4 spaces, and that's going to cause errors in make. So I have to replace the 4 spaces with a tab, which I need to actually have regular expressions configured here. There you go. So now that's a tab character. And we'll just do a super basic G++ command where we'll take main.cpp. I know this is really terrible form for this makefile, but we'll just start with a super basic makefile, and then you can do things properly after that. And let's start with a super basic main.cpp file as well. I'm going to do all the things you're not supposed to do here, like have no arguments in main. And let's just save that. That's main.cpp. Okay, so all this stuff is done outside of NetBeans, and now I want to actually turn this folder into a project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go new project in NetBeans, then C++ and C++ project with existing sources. So then I'm going to navigate to this path. Easiest way to do that is to copy the path and paste it here. And then I need a build host. So you're going to start off with probably no build hosts. Maybe you'll have just like a local host build host, just a default one. I have a whole bunch configured here. We'll talk about what these are soon. So I'm just going to pick one of these arbitrarily. You'll leave it on localhost. What'll happen on your end is when you do the initial build, it will just fail. It'll just sort of echo, clean, and build, and that's it. So I leave most of these settings alone, except I'm going to go for a custom configuration mode, and then on the next tab you have a pre-build action if something has to happen before you actually call make. In this case, we won't worry about that. And then for a clean and build command, let's just go for a super basic non-functional echoes. So this is going to print the word clean and print the word make, and that's the clean and make commands. And yeah, we'll let it clean and build right after we click finish. That's fine. And you specify the source folders. If the source folder is just the project folder, which it is in our example, then we'll just leave this as is. If there are any subfolders, this automatically captures all subfolders, so don't worry about that. And then for code assistance, we'll just leave it on automatic configuration. And I mean, we'll just create the new project. The project folder will be a subfolder of this location where we have these sources. I got to click finish. When I click finish, I now have a project here. Make sure you're on the projects tab. And then it's going to run automatically. Here's your output at the bottom. It's going to run clean and build automatically. And of course, I configured the clean and build so that they're just echoing a word. So it says build successful, but it didn't really do anything. And so we want to change this to use the makefile. But on your end, you probably don't have any C++ compilers installed. And so I'll create another tutorial where I explain how to install C++ compilers on the Windows subsystem for Linux and Ubuntu for Windows and all that stuff. But for now, let's just suppose that you're going to connect to a remote host and have NetBeans automatically upload your files and then compile your code on that remote server. So how would you do this? Well, first of all, you've got to have some remote server that you actually want to use. So I have a couple of them that I use routinely here. I'm going to go to the Services tab, and I'm going to go Build Hosts, and I have a whole bunch of these build hosts already, but we're going to add another one just to demonstrate. And of course, I can't add a build host that I already have, so I'll delete a build host that I currently have, and then I'll add it back just to demonstrate how you would add a build host. So what can you use as a build host? Basically any machine that you can SSH into. If you can SSH into the machine, then you can use it as a build host. So I'm going to use my machine, jax.multicore.cs.uwaterloo.ca. This is like a private machine, so you guys won't be able to connect to it unless you happen to be one of my students. And if you are one of my students and you need access, then let me know. So here you can specify your login and a password. The default settings are pretty good, and then you just have to punch in your password. You can click Remember Password, so you don't have to type it every time. Now, this is how you would do it if you had a password. In my case, I actually don't have a password login. I actually just need to specify a public key, or a private key file, and we're going to use, SSH key authentication. So I'll pause the video for a second and I would browse and select my SSH key file. Okay, so now I've selected my SSH key file. I'm going to click Next. I click Next, it connects, it configures the host, everything just happens immediately behind the scenes. It detects what tool collections are available on the remote host, in this case Clang and GNU. And that's it, the build host is basically ready to use. So I'm just going to rename this to match what I had before. So now I have jax.multicore. And so here you can choose the tool collection, GNU is a good default here. And then you have this access project files via, and you probably want to use either automatic copying or SFTP. SFTP is typically most reliable, so I would probably try that as a default. The other option that I didn't mention forces you to manually map paths on one host to the other, so it's sort of more complicated. So I can select the new build host that I just added and say, set as default if I like. I can also specify that that's the build host that should be used for our project. I go back to the Projects tab, go to Properties of the project, and then I go, is it Build, I think? It is. And then Build Host here, I can actually just select from the drop-down the build host to use. And I can switch the tool collection. I want to use GNU in this case. And then, of course, I had these dummy clean and build commands. So I've got to have some non-dummy, clean and build commands that'll actually work. So I have no clean command right now in this simple make file, so I won't do anything there, but I'll say make, and then, actually just make alone should build this. The working directory where we're going to run make is just the root of the project, and that's it. So now that I've configured this, I can press F11, which is the hotkey for building. You can also click up here for build and here for clean and build. And what's actually going to happen is I press F11, is you get this new tab, and I'm going to scroll up to the beginning and happen pretty quickly. So it says copying project files to this crazy path at the build host Jax that we just added. So it's actually created a path in my home directory /.NetBeans. This is sort of an invisible folder, so you'll have to sort of cd to this folder by typing .net and pressing tab or something. And then there's this whole long path where it's sort of saying this was a remote build. Here's the server here's the name that we had for, that server that we were trying to build on, and then here's the machine that we were building from. This is basically the host name, operating system, and architecture of my machine that I'm building from, and this is the remote server. So if you're on like a shared network drive, even if your home directory is in one place and you access many machines, work that you do on one machine won't overwrite work that you're doing on another remote machine or local machine, because that's all encoded in the path. Okay, so then it says building project file list, checking directory structure, checking previously uploaded files. So it's only ever going to upload the delta, the updated files. Now, it's a little bit spotty sometimes. You can have weird things happen where it thinks that some files that really are in your project are not in your project. It thinks they're not in your project, so it'll fail to track changes to them and upload them. The solution in that case is to just go into your project folder, delete the NB project folder, and then repeat this process of going new project and create C++ project with existing sources. It's sort of rare that needs to be done, but occasionally if you're ripping your hair out going, why is it not uploading a file? I've had this problem sort of once every 6 months or something with, some project that I'm working on. So it's nice to know that can happen and sort of how to fix it. So basically, if you change a file and you press F11 and you don't see that it's uploading changed files, then that's probably what's happening. Okay, but then uploading changed files. So it actually zips them to make the upload faster, uploads the zip, unzips them, checks any permissions. So if you need to chmod shell scripts so they can be run, it'll do that intelligently, or it'll try to at least. It'll upload those changed files, then it'll change directory to where it's going to execute your make instruction, the root of the project as it was uploaded. So this is the full path where the project was uploaded. You can cd to this if you want to go run it, and then you can run make, and it runs make, which executes the command. The output from make is printed here, and that's it. The file's been made. So that was uploading and remote building, and sort of getting the output of the build here, and it's super easy to do that in NetBeans. Now, if I want to change this program very slightly, so let's say I want to do using namespace standard and have this, just print some hello world, right? So hello world and L. Now I want to upload and recompile. I just press F11 again. So what does it do? It uploads the one changed file, recompiles. And that's it. Now if I want to go find this and run it, I'm going to open up a putty session to that server. I'll shrink the window so it fits in my recording area. And then what was that path? So everything's under the .NetBeans folder. So I just go cd space .net, press tab again, tab again, tab again. And tab is great for filling in these paths, right? If I have a choice to make, Bitbucket or temp, I get to fill in what I'm looking for. Actually, sorry, what we just did was in the temp folder. So temp, there we go. And tab might take me a little too far. I don't want to go into the NB project folder, so I'll backspace a bit. There's my new project. And here are my files. And I can run a.out, and it does what I expect. Now, NetBeans does have its own integrated terminal, so I can actually run, I can click Open Working Directory and Terminal. That'll start up a terminal here. Now I have Powerline installed on my remote server to get these really fancy looking prompts. And that does not play well with the NetBeans terminal, which does not have ANSI character support, although there's probably a way to change the font to an ANSI font that can actually, support all of these characters. Something that supports UTF-8 characters and colors and all this. At any rate, I am actually in that folder, and I can run, locally, and then I can type exit and close that terminal. So you can do that stuff in NetBeans if you like. I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend using an external terminal, something like Putty, or if you're working on Linux, then just, the Linux default terminal. Okay, so that was a crash course on how to do the basic setup of NetBeans and create a project and build the project on a remote host and run the project. So I'll leave that there.